Hey, so now we're here for lesson 3, and we're going to use table views and arrays in this lesson, and they're kind of related because whenever you have an array, the best way to display that data usually is a table view, sometimes collection view, but arrays are lists of data essentially, and table view is a way to display lists of data, so they kind of coincide right there. So hopefully you'll find this useful in not just this project, but a lot of other ones. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our library here. We're going to take this table view controller, and drag it out onto the storyboard, just drag and drop it there. And so basically this is a table view and a view controller all in one. So before I go any further, I want to talk a little bit more about the table view. They're super common in Swift. You'll see these pictures here. Everything from Time Magazine's app, or this could be Apple News. I'm not sure, but this is like top charts from the App Store. You can't really see it, but over here, and then Apple Music. These are all different versions of custom table views. And so, I mean, they're absolutely everywhere. If you have an iPhone, every app you have basically has a table view in it. So it requires a couple functions that are, it won't run, it'll throw a red flag without these functions. And the self row and index path and number of rows, we'll make those in a second. And like I said, used for menus, displaying sets of data, and anything else you can think of. So it's interesting to see some of the things that people come up with using table views and also collection views. Which is another form of table view, but with more customization. You can maybe scroll horizontally, so if that's an issue that you're having, try collection views. Excuse me, yeah, very useful tool though. So like we just dragged the table view controller, we just dragged the table view controller onto our app, and that it takes away a few extra steps that we'd have to do if we added a table view just to the view that we already have. So I'm just trying to simplify this a little bit for y'all to show you how table view works, and then you can add it to your app later. There's all kinds of resources to show you how to do that. And actually I have a video on table views, so check that out. And the next step here, we're going to take this little arrow here, which is, see up here it says storyboard entry point. So that's when you open the app. That's the first thing that's going to open up. Well, the launch screen will be the first thing, but that's more of like kind of a UI thing. It's for like designers and stuff to work on. But this, this is the first page of coded page that opens up really. And so we want to set the initial controller to this controller, because if we want this authors thing, we want the table view to be the first thing. So we're just going to blow this up. Let's. I hate that you guys did all this work and it literally means nothing. But yeah, so we're going to delete that, and we're going to delete that. Move it to trash. Just get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. And in this table view controllers, what we learned about classes earlier is that we're going to need a superclass that is also a table view controller instead of just a UI view controller. So we're going to go to File, New, and File. And in here we're going to select CocoaTouch class, and we want table view controller. And we'll call this one Author Table View Controller. And it's in Swift, of course. And you want to make sure this checkbox is always checked. That you're targeting the app, or otherwise, it literally won't work. And there we go. So a lot of this stuff, don't let it, mess with you. This is Apple's boilerplate code. They just throw it in everything, and we don't even need like 90% of this stuff. Cell for row at we need, and that's it for now. Literally it. All this stuff. Now the number of sections, so number of sections is also required. I'll add that to the PowerPoint in a second. But number of rows, let's just do one right now. Later we're going to have it count the amount of items in the array and display that. But for right now, let's just do 1. And in here, with the cell for row at index path, we're going to configure the cell. And you can see in here, it's already said created a let constant, if you recall the let constant, which means we're not going to change the cell throughout this process, or this instance of the cell. So we'll change things like the text of the cell, but that is mutable under this. It just means that, so when it says let constant, it just means that nothing in here, is going to change. So actually, when you're using a table view, it says DQ reusable cell, and that's because as you scroll down, if we add more authors here, as you scroll down, there's going to be memory situation where, do you want every single author displayed all the way down without the the user's only looking at what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at a time, maybe 10. You don't want to display thousands. It's going to crash your phone, screw up the memory. So the DQ reusable cell is basically when you scroll down, these will hide off into the memory, and they'll be reloaded when you scroll back up. So that's why we use the word DQ here. And with the reuse identifier is in the storyboard, and in this cell, if we click it, we can go in here and we can set the reuse identifier. Now these are required when you're doing storyboard, so set the reuse identifier to author cell, and don't forget the camel case. Now we're going to go back into our view controller, and we want to change this to author cell. Make sure everything, since it's a string, it won't auto-correct it for you. So you got to make sure everything is spelled right. So this cell, when you set the let constant into a reusable cell, it's telling it that the cell is a table view cell. It's under the UI table view cell protocol, which means that you can call all the functions attached to that, like we did earlier with the UI label. So I want to change the text of the first cell here, and I want it to say, let's do text label dot text. Now you have to go through text label dot text because the label just refers to the label, and you have to have the text, and that's going to equal. Let's do hello world again. And let's see if we get it running. We ran it and nothing's going on. So why is that? I think we missed a step over here in the storyboard. Now when you go into this storyboard, this table view controller that we drag and dropped on here has no idea that it's supposed to be associated with this author table view controller over here. Earlier to like the kind of, give me the steps for PB&J kind of thing. It's you have to be explicit with this thing. And in order to do that, you go into here in the identity inspector of the individual view controller, which if you're having problems highlighting things, just click this button right here. This is how you really get to it. And I'm going to say author table view controller. And so now these two should be talking to each other, and we should get the result that we're looking for. And we did. So we're back to hello world, except we have it in a little more complicated version. So there we go, moving on up. So now we're going to make it a little more complicated and throw in some arrays on top of that. Up here, we're just going to add a simple let array, and it's a let because we don't plan on changing it. Let array, let's be more specific, number array. An important thing, especially when you're working in a job, is to make sure the code is readable. If you, especially, you're sharing with other people, And so the numbers are going to be, we're just going to do 1, 3, 5, 8, 146, 45, whatever. So now we're going to hit play and see how that goes along. And it's really just a waste of time because it's the same thing, of course, because we haven't laid out anything. Now, sometimes, I don't know if you guys are guilty of this, but I'll click this play all the time without even adding something to the view. I'm like, why'd I do that? And just sitting here using my computer's RAM trying to run this simulator. But yeah, so we have our number array, and we want to make each number appear and go down in the table view, like 1, 3, 5, 8. In order to do that, we're going to have to tell it how many rows we need, because right now it only thinks we want 1 row. So let's return 6 rows, and let's just see what that looks like. Now if we place 6 rows, it's going to think that you want hello world in all of the 6 rows, because it says cell text label text, and that's for each author cell in the index path. Now, how do we make it individual, and how do we put the array info in there? First, we want to count the amount of items in the array. So there's a handy little thing that comes with arrays in Swift, and you just do number array dot count, and it returns an integer that is the count of the numbers in the array, or the strings in the array, or the doubles in the array, whatever floats your boat. So now we should have 5, and we do have 5. So progress. Now we want to change the cell text label text to whatever is in the corresponding row in the array. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to put in our number array, and we're going to do something a little new here, and we're going to put it in brackets. We're going to say index path dot row. Now, what does that mean? So that's basically telling it, hey, so I want for each row, you want to count down the rows the same way we counted in the number array, and we want to go down for the first row or the 0th row in an array. They start counting a 0 in an array. So the 0th row in the array is going to be this 1 here, and the first row will be this 3, second will be 5, and so on. So it'll count down each one, and it'll pop up that number, hopefully. But see, we have a problem here. We cannot assign a value of type int to type string. So right here with text, it's expecting a string. This number array number is not a string. So what do we do here? There are a few ways to turn an integer into a string, but this is my favorite. So we're going to put quotes around it, and then we're going to do backslash, and then we're going to put parentheses around it. And that's how you basically put anything in a string. So you can add like number is, and you can have your own string, and then you can put the number in there. So let's see how that works. And as you can see, here we go. So we're doing pretty well here. And so before we go to the next step, I want to just talk a little bit more about arrays. So basically, they're a collection of variables in group format. Like I said a second ago, they start counting with 0, not 1. You can see this image down here. It's an array, again, of random numbers, but this is the index, and this is how it starts, 0 to 8. So, but there's 9, see, as it says, 9 numbers, but counting from 0 to 8. So, you know, if you think of like normal, like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, so programmers, developers think like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, that's how it goes. Or more even like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's 5 total. So just start counting at 0, kind of do that in your day-to-day, and it'll and you'll get used to it. Yeah, if you're new to this. So yeah, all the data types that can be variables can also be stored in an array. And you can have arrays that hold all kinds of stuff. So in the next lesson, that's what we're about to get to, lesson 4. There's a lot of stuff, so I kind of wanted to break it up a little bit. And plus, there's a thing that I read that you learn better in 20-minute spurts. So hopefully that's helping you guys retain the information. I just I do what is best for me, and I hope that it works for you guys too. So I've had a lot of experience learning things, you know, going to college and everything, and you know, I learn best when I do kind of a sprint, 20 minutes, and then, you know, sit down, maybe meditate, take it all in, something like that, or just even go, you know, play with my little dog here. But all right, yeah, rant over. In the next video or the next lesson, if you're watching all these together, we're going to create a whole quote array that has 2 different variables that are stored in the same piece of the array. So kind of just get ready for that. So in this where this 1 is here, we're going to have our quote and the author in that first spot, and then, you know, so on and so forth for all of them. And so it'll be exciting and a little bit challenging. So look forward to seeing you in the next one.